host and welcoming back to the Squawk Ident Podcast, Mr. Kyle Jansen, as he introduces us to his cadets, Will Saunders and Travis Gove. Also joining us today is an American Airlines Cadet Program recruiter, Ms. Jennifer Bloom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Hi.
How you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Well, Kyle, let's start with you. First off, thank you for bringing this idea to us here. You know, Kyle reached out to me a little while back and said, hey, man, remember when I said I'd like to bring my cadets on? Let's do it. And I can bring a recruiter on the show as well. And I said, this is amazing. Let's do it. What have you been up to since we last spoke back in June?
Well, been flying my tail off. Summer months were busy months for the airlines, and started getting into the zero timeline with the legacy letter of agreement. So trying to been flying a lot, and trying to staying busy at home.
Yeah. Yeah, we've spoken in detail about the zero timelines that have affected us here at the Legacy Airlines, the name we use here as an alias to our employer, since we don't represent the company in any way, shape, or form, but we do enjoy sharing the news that we can and talking about this amazing journey in aviation. And Kyle, congratulations on the big news. Would you like to share that with us? Now that I put you on the spot.
Yeah, my wife and I are expecting our first in March. Baby girl due in March. We're beyond blessed and excited for arrival. So as you can assume, there's lots of things to accomplish before she gets here, and things are coming along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations.
What a great
Congrats,
time.
Kyle.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah,
That's
congrats,
exciting.
Kyle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Exciting time. And I know the in-laws and your parents are probably losing their
Ecstatic.
stuff right now.
Yeah.
I know one thing's for sure, and it's going to be probably a topic for the next podcast, Kyle, is you're going to be going to work to get some rest.
Yeah, I've flown with a few pilots that have said, you're going to go to your layover and you're just going to hit the bed and not wake up till the next show time the next day. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yep. I think it's the only permissible time to be a slam clicker in the industry is when you're a new father.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Or a new parent.
Congrats, man.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned you have been on a zero timeline, but you're flying your butt off.
Yes.
How did you make that happen, and how has it been going?
Well, the zero timeline is a first time for this legacy carrier. I would call it an experiment. It's never been done before. And basically what it is we do not, the pilot that picks the zero timeline does not get a schedule a month prior. However, they have the ability to pick up open time flying or the ability to trip trade with another pilot. It's been going a lot better than most of us thought it would go. There have been a lot of pilots that have been flying as much as they want, and there's been pilots that have been flying very as little as they want, but they have that choice. So, in my opinion, it's gone a little better than we thought, and it's one of those things where you don't know when your next trip's going to be. So, if you don't have anything going on, you may as well go fly. And the wife tells me to when I'm home for quite a period of time that I need to go pick up some flying. So, so that's what I've been doing. Last month, I flew about 76 hours, and this month I have a transition month for 95 hours this month.
Wow.
But, I've had vacation this month and last month. So, and generally November, December's or slower times for all the airline schedules. So it's worked out well so far.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got to admit, I am very impressed with how this has all come to play. There are those that are on the social media zero timeline boards. And we've talked about how to pick up trips and the different avenues to doing so that are very upset because they have very little hours and they think that um, that this is not fair, that why I have to fight in a pool of sharks to get flight time. Meanwhile, there are people with zero time lines that have 80, 90 hours. And meanwhile, I have 10 hours and I'm fighting and I can't get any hours in there. And some of these boards have elected to introduce their own version of seniority bidding or low time bidding by using pay projection values. So the person with the lower projected value for the following month would get the trip. But when you own a trip and you're giving it to someone else, really, you give it to whoever you want. There is no rule. There is no language in our Legacy Airline Association pilot group that says you can't give it to a particular person. So,
and one thing that we have learned throughout this, and I know a lot of pilots don't generally get into their own contract. However, with this, we have learned that you can do pilot-to-pilot trading up to 1 minute prior to sign-in. So if you have a trip leaving that same day, and as long as it's before the sign-in time, you can trip trade to anybody you want to drop the trip to.
Wow.
So that's one thing that we have found out that is, I guess that's a good thing for the pilot group to do that. So just know that going forward.
Yeah, I actually, now that we had some breaking news just come across your page, actually, thank you for posting that,
Yes.
is the COVID relief package has been approved. They have 72 hours from when it finally goes through the House and the Senate and everything, all the signatures get done. It's pretty much a done deal. The language has now been released to the public, and our company has agreed to bring everyone back within 72 hours of when it's official, and we'll back pay them through December 1st. This is huge. Now that the zero time line is going to be going away, I'm going to tell you some secrets that I've been using. Now, some of my fellow pilots here in the LA area have been complaining about not getting much flying because there really has been not much out there. It's been scraps. As the viewers have heard, a lot of the flying that I've been doing is a dead head out and one leg back, and it's been scraps. But the way I did it was I was able to pick up like 1 or 2 trips for the month of December. I got about 20 hours. It was not bad. I was prepared financially to have a 20-hour paycheck for the month. But then I had used all the available resources that I had at my ability to use, and I used what we call Lightsaber, and I put a generic bid in there. I left it in there as a continuous. I put in there trade immediately, so I didn't have to verify anything. I had something through a program called a TTS, or a trip trading system, and I had some bids in there. And what I did there was I found all the trips that were blocked for IOE, and I put a bid in. If it opens up, I want it, right? And I was able to pick up a trip that way because it didn't go to IOE. The training department released it, and guess what? I'm going to Kona tomorrow. Yay! And then there's some other things. I got a day trip. Now, as a zero timeline holder, we technically were not allowed to pick up open time, meaning there's no one assigned to the trip. So ZTL cannot pick up open time. They can only do pilot-to-pilot drops or premium pay, which is, okay, scheduling doesn't have anyone that can fly this. They're going to pay time and a half. It goes to premium.
Open time during DOTC.
During the window. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would then get a day trip that was dropped to me from another pilot, and then I would surf through the trips that were open, and I would trip trade, because once the trip was in my name, I now own that trip, and I could trade it. So I'm not technically picking up open time. I can trade it. So I would trade it for a 4-day. So I was able to build my month up just like you. I got about 80 hours for December. And actually I was supposed to have yesterday and the day before off, but I forgot about my lightsaber bid, and we were supposed to do this on what was it, Friday or Saturday, and
Oh man.
so hey, I'm not complaining. I was able to use the system to the best of my knowledge simply because I did my homework. And I encourage all the aviators out there that once you get on with a mainline carrier, an airline, a regional, even a corporate operator, know your contract. I never in a million years thought I would want to be a lawyer or have to study anything legal until I became a pilot and realized in order to protect my license and build a good schedule, I need to get into the minutia of the legal parts of the contract. So yeah, it definitely worked out for me. So the Rona, it's around. We're finally at this vaccines that have been approved. One has been approved by the FAA, the Moderna vaccine. We are days away from another FAA approval with that. How has that, Kyle, affected you?
Well, my everyday lifestyle. I like to get out of the house and go see friends, and I'm a big Travis can attest to this. I like to meet people all the time, buy them lunch and dinner, and catch up. And haven't really been able to do that. And then maybe the biggest thing for me is with my wife being in the medical field. After I get home from a trip, I got to strip down in the garage. I got to spray down my suitcase and my bags, and go immediately take a shower, get cleaned up, and do laundry. And or before just you're dragging your suitcase in. That's the last thing you want to do when you get home from a 4-day trip. Is you have an extra 30 minutes to figure stuff out. But that, and then being out on the road, not being able, depending on the city, not being able to go out, not being able to get out of the hotel room, go walk around, go hike, go try out the local restaurants. It's been takeout and Uber Eats or one of those at certain cities, and it's kind of sad to see, but we got to do what we got to do right now in order to let this pass.
Yeah. And I feel like, probably the next 90 days, we're going to start to see some of these restrictions get lifted or at least lessened. And that'll help the quality of life issues as we all have been facing in this industry. Now, before we introduce some special guests to the show, I wanted to find out, Kyle, how did you get involved to be a mentor in this cadet program for Legacy Airlines?
Okay, well, I've always been, would say, mentor to the younger generation as I've progressed throughout my career, kind of showing the younger pilots kind of which direction they should go, or what direction I think they should go, and kind of giving them a guidance on how to do it, how to get there, and who to talk to, and so forth. Oh, and then I found out the Legacy airline had a cadet program, and threw my name into the hat, and been here about 1.5 years, and I have 2 amazing cadets right now that I've seen them work very hard all year, and I'm glad I'm helping them out and watching them on their start of their journey, and hopefully be able to fly with them one day at the Legacy airline.
Yeah, and let's introduce our first cadet to the show, Travis. How are you? How are you doing? And where are you joining us from today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on here. I'm actually up here in Kearney, Nebraska. It's about 2 hours west of Lincoln. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the geography of Nebraska, but currently up here at my first gig out of the training and at helping students at University of Nebraska Kearney is a 141 program up here. So,
well, welcome to the show. We look forward to hearing a little bit about your journey as well.
Sure.
And another cadet that's joining us today, Will, what's been going on? How are you doing? And where are you joining us from?
Hey, thanks for having me. everything's been going well. I just finished up my CFI check ride on Saturday. Passed that first time round.
Congrats, man.
Yay!
Thank you. And so now I moved back up to South Carolina, Charleston, and I think I'm going to take this festive period off and then jump right into CFI training or into CFIing.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say my hat's off to you two gentlemen, because, I've been doing this for quite some time, a couple decades of aviation. And I got to go on to the flight line over at Gillespie Field in San Diego recently, which we spoke of earlier on this episode with our co-host, Captain Roger, who had to leave us a little earlier. And I was just so impressed. I was like, man, I was excited. I was like a little kid in a candy store. Like, I haven't been on a GA flight line in so long. and it's actually a little intimidating. All the moving pieces of a general aviation ramp, when you get into the bubble of an airline and, your responsibilities really lie within the operation of the aircraft, and you're no longer doing all that other stuff like the weather planning and the flight planning and the fuel planning. That's all done for you. You're really spoiled. And, you're in the footprint of the aircraft on a walk around. That's really limits your exposure to the ramp. And then you go walk on a GA ramp and you got cars and helicopters and jets and piston powered aircraft. And it's all just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So my hat's off to you, gentlemen, for being at this stage in your careers. Don't ever lose that. That's the thrill of the GA ramp. So thank you. And also joining us today, I am very honored to have a recruiter from our sister company over there at American Airlines join us, Ms. Jennifer Bloom. How are you, and where are you joining us from?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. As you said, my name is Jennifer, and I am joining you all from Dallas-Fort Worth. I typically work at the American Airlines Flight Training Academy, and I'm currently from home working.
Oh, excellent. Well, Kyle has been gracious enough to invite all of you on and have the opportunity here to kind of talk about the cadet program. I get a lot of questions about this. And as Kyle mentioned, as being a mentor in the community, I also, and I know Rob and Roger have taken a lot of pride in being mentors ourselves. I've always said from the onset of this podcast that I stand here before you all, standing on the shoulders of all the aviators that came before me. They lifted me up. They led me in the right direction. And I wanted to return the favor. And that's really what this podcast is all about. It talks about the journey of today's aviator and all the hurdles that we have to overcome, in especially this environment. And 2020 has become a literal battlefield for this aviation community. So thank you all for joining us today. Well, let's start out with Travis. You're from Lincoln, Nebraska. Your grandfather was a World War II pilot, and you also were in the U.S. Air Force right out of high school. What got you so interested in this journey? Was it really your grandfather's inspiration, or did it start somewhere else?
No, I mean, it started back like when I was a child, 10, 11 years old, listening to, I think I even did in sixth grade, I did a huge, like a report and like got in front of the whole school and presented on my father or grandfather's success stories. And as a B-47, B-29 pilot, 22-year-old veteran, lieutenant colonel when he retired. And it was a little inspiration. I think that kind of got me in the bug of the military. Like I wrote in the bio, I don't think my head was in the right place in high school. And I just kind of wanted to get out of Lincoln and join the Air Force. And I wanted to be around aviation of some sort. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life yet. So I was kind of mechanically inclined and took the aptitude test, and they threw me into being a mechanic as on the A-10s. And so I did that for a few years, and that was a good time.
Crew
I learned a
dog.
lot.
All right.
Yeah.
Crew dog.
There you
I'm a crew
go.
dog too. I was a crew dog on the Viper.
There you go. Yeah, and it was a good time. I enjoyed working on it, and I got a little homesick, I think. And as I progressed through the Air Force, I decided, hey, I'm ready for college. I'm going to go home, get out, and head back to Lincoln, Nebraska. And I got my bachelor's and kind of lost sight of the aviation bug for a little bit there, kind of, a little bit of engineering track. And then I got involved with the agriculture and worked for a company for 4 or 5 years and got promoted a few times, had some success, but just never really felt at home with what I was doing. And so I finally kind of kicked my own butt and got going with the aviation thing again around about 30, 31, sold my house, quit my job, moved down to Dallas, and somehow got hooked up with the cadet program. And here I am ever since, and loving it every day. So
now that's funny you say that, somehow got hooked up. So you started with a Part 61 flight training, and I know you kind of mentioned to us that the kind of money ran out, and so you were doing other things. But then you moved to Dallas, and a friend of yours sent you a LinkedIn article. How did?
Yeah, it was so random. So I was getting ready. I was actually getting ready to move down there, and he sent me. I wanted to move down there because the 141 schools available in the DFW area were. There was more, and at the time in Lincoln and Omaha, there wasn't any 141 schools. And I had talked to a few of my other pilot friends, and they said, if you can try to get into one, try to do it that way. It's a little bit better. And it sounded like it was a better fit for me personally, my learning style. So he sent me a link on LinkedIn, and it was the cadet program. And I looked into it, applied for it. Naturally didn't hear anything right away. And no offense to you guys or anything, but they said you guys were getting about 5,000 to 7,000 applicants in the beginning right away, so it was quite to funnel through. But I worked a little bit of magic on the back end and went through the back door of the system, and actually kind of reached out to one of the schools that were partnering with the cadet program at the time, and I kind of talked to one of the administrators and one of the recruiters there, and met with him for a few hours on a Saturday after I moved down to Dallas. And they said, we'd love to have you come through our school. We'd love you if you're interested, I can get you a phone call. Sure enough, email invite the next day. So wow. The rest was kind of history. And I learned very quickly. It's sometimes it's very much of who you know in this industry very quickly. So that helped me out. And after I got my medical, I was able to get started within 2 weeks, and started basically with 10 hours under my belt, like I said, with the Part 61 training that I did in August of 19, and completed my double I in August of 2020.
Yeah. And so you decided to move back to Nebraska, as you mentioned earlier with the introduction, in Kearney, Nebraska, and you're now flying in cooperation with the University in Nebraska, and you've got a pretty busy flight schedule with your training. How's that working out for you?
So far, it's been pretty busy. Yeah, I got up here. I think I had about 7 or 8 students just waiting for me. They were TSA approved and didn't have an instructor. And they'd been, in the aviation bachelor's program here at University of Nebraska, Kearney, for about a year. I think most of these guys are sophomores now that I've gotten around to being up here, and they were basically waiting for me to get up here and start training them. So the first month or two, I think I averaged about 80 hours a month, which is not too bad for starting out as a CFI. So it's definitely slowing down a little bit. Winter's kicking in. The holidays are kicking in. Everybody's kind of going back to their home countries for a few weeks while it's winter break. But yeah, it's been pretty good so far.
Oh, excellent. And also joining us today is another cadet, Will. Thank you for joining us. You started out in kind of a similar manner, that you wanted to get into aviation. What did your background give you to say, hey, I want to be a pilot? Was it something that started at a very young age, or did you have inspiration from a family member? How did that all come about?
Sure. So I'm actually from a long legacy of pilots. My dad was F-18 pilot in the Marines, and his dad was a P-3 pilot in the Navy, and his sister was a P-3 pilot in the Navy as well. So I always grew up around it. I was always near jets. I moved around a lot in the military. So I never really thought much about it. I just knew, that was the life I lived, because I just followed my dad around when he moved in the military. And then after he got out and he went to go work for a legacy airline, I wasn't really around much airplanes anymore, other than all the pictures around the house and all the models he had. But I went to college, pursued a degree in business, and it was something that I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to make money. That was what was in my head. I was like, business is how everyone ends up making money. So I did that, didn't fly at all, and got a job with a pharmaceutical company down here in Charleston, and found out that I really didn't like what I was doing. I was working in not in a cubicle, but in an office with no windows and fluorescent white lights. And it really wasn't my style. So I decided to start taking lessons at a Part 61 school while working full time, and was able to finish up in a little over 3 months while working full time, flying at night or flying on the weekends, trying to get minimum time just so I can be done.
Yeah.
And in that meantime, I had applied to this Legacy Cadet Academy. And after I'd put in, there's a page where it says what's your flight experience. So I started updating that as I got more and more flight time, and then got an email back to have a video interview. And that's kind of how it all came about.
Yeah. And so, from a legacy of pilots, you kind of are following suit of your family's, experience. And did they help you out by giving you any advice early on in your training?
I think my dad obviously tried to give me as much advice as he could, but he didn't really know the civilian side of how to come up through the ranks to become a commercial pilot. So it was more, I knew someone in college who ended up doing a Part 141 school. So I was in contact with him, saw what he did, if he had any advice. And then my dad would give me advice on how to fly, some of the things he had learned while he was a pilot, or he still is a pilot. But it was a lot of just trial and error and kind of on my own, because civilian and military side of flying is two different avenues.
Yeah. Very true. And really, again, another reason why this podcast is so dear to me is that when I was coming through a civilian side, I also did a Part 61 school for my private, and then I got into a Part 141 for everything else. And I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know the scope of what was involved and what to expect. All I knew was what my fellow students and fellow general aviation pilots were telling me. And, my instructors, they were 6 months ahead of me, that they were teaching me how to fly. So I really didn't get the big global assessment of what was going on in the industry and what to expect. And so to have an organization or program set in place that gives you the tools to be prepared, to make the best decisions, is absolutely crucial. And this is why the cadet program is such a sought after thing in this industry. So, thank you for sharing that with us. And I ought to say congratulations as well, because I heard someone got their commercial license just the other day. Is that right?
My CFI.
Oh, your CFI, even better.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, your CFI. Okay. I just had a conversation on the flight deck with my captain last night. We were talking about how excited I was about doing the show today, and I was asking him a couple questions. That's what I do. There is no downtime when you're flying with me. When we're cruising along for an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, I'm gonna get me to shut up. Good luck. And I asked him, what was your hardest part of your training in your general aviation? He goes, oh, for sure, my CFI check ride. He said it was a 4.5 hour oral. And because the FAA guy that was there to do my check ride had nothing to do that day, and he didn't want to go back to the office. So he goes, it was a 4.5 hour oral. And he asked me everything under the sun. I passed. It was fine. And then it was another 2.5 hours in the airplane. I was like, oh my God, that's a long day. He's like, it was the hardest thing I have ever done to date. And he was a military pilot, had flown combat missions. And I'm like, you're kidding me. He's like, nope. So how did your CFI check ride go? Was it the same?
Yeah, it was pretty long. The oral was, I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and didn't get much sleep. I actually felt sick because it was on a Friday, and the whole week I'd been stressing because I was going to drive home the next day, and I was leaving the school because I would be done. So I really needed to pass the check ride. So I got there at 6:30. My DPE got there at 7. Went on to about 12, so about a 5-hour oral, and then had 2 hours in the flight. And by the time everything was said and done, it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. So it was a pretty long day.
Now, what's the best advice you can give anyone out there that's getting ready for their CFI check ride?
I would say that definitely make your own lesson plans, because you can buy some online, but everyone has their own way of teaching. And when you don't construct your own lesson plan, then you're having to you have to understand the way they put it together so that you can have a smooth flow through. So if you create it yourself, you know exactly what you're putting in there. You're knowing the different segments of that lesson. So you're not going to stumble over anything. You're not going to forget anything. And I would also say, get all your other people that are in the same, at the same level as you on your training, and study with them, talk about aviation with them, soak it all in. And by the time you got your check ride, you'll know if you're ready or not. So just if you study hard enough and this is what you love to do, then I thought it wasn't terribly difficult. It was just a lot of studying. So it was definitely a lot of studying.
And just keep that in the back of your mind, because when you get hired on at a regional, drinking from the fire hose, right, Rob?
Yep. Yeah, that's same thing. You do a lot of buddy study stuff. You get in groups and you bounce questions off each other, because like you said, you may understand something one way and the other guy doesn't, and the way you explain it is different than what the instructor did. But now they connect, and okay, it makes sense.
Exactly.
Right. And we all have, our different ways of learning. Some of us are tactile, visual. Some of us will, stick our nose in the book, and at the end of it, it's like, you're good. You're an expert. So it just depends on your learning style, and definitely is very helpful to do all the things, like you said, is to have your own lesson plans, study with others, and try to approach everything until you have a total comprehensive understanding from different angles, because it'll help you.
I think we as pilots are also very competitive people. When we're with each other and we see that our other person we're with has completed their CFI or completed their training without having, messed up a check ride, then you're like, okay, well, I know I'm just as good of a pilot as he is, so I need to pass his check ride first time around. And so it's a lot of that competition that goes in there as well.
Yeah. Well, 20 years in, instead of saying that, you're going to be wearing T-shirts on your layovers that say the world's most okayest pilot, and proud of it. Well, I've got to say, thank you for sharing that. And I want to welcome to the podcast from the American Airlines Cadet Program. She is a recruiter, and she works in the Recruiting and Development Office at American Airlines. Please help us and welcome me to the show, Jennifer Bloom. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm really good. How are you?
Doing great. What can you tell me about how you came into this position? And is this something that you just love to be a part of, or is there something more to the story here?
Okay, so I have a little bit complicated story for you. Similar to Will, I come from an aviation family. So my dad is a captain at a legacy airline, and my brother is a captain at a regional airline. I attended the University of Notre Dame, and I studied finance and Chinese there. I was a double major, and I thought I wanted to do international business, similar to Will. So after I graduated from Notre Dame, I went into the finance field, and I found that I did not enjoy it. And my whole life, I'd seen my dad being a pilot and I thought it was so cool and amazing, but I honestly didn't think I could do it as a female. Like I'd never seen a female pilot in my life. And I was talking to my dad about it when I was working in finance. I told him I wasn't enjoying it. And he said, I think you would be a great pilot. I really think you would enjoy it. I was a D1 athlete in college. He's like, you have hand-eye coordination. You can do this. And I didn't really believe him until I saw my brother start at the regional airline. And he was 2 years older than me. So he was just starting at the regional. And I saw what he was doing. And I was like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, right on.
So that's when I decided to go to flight school. And I got my flight ratings up through my MEI. And I became a flight instructor. And then I ended up being a manager at our flight school as well. So I was building up my flight hours. I have about 850, 900 hours. And then this is where the story gets complicated. Long story short, I ended up losing my medical, completely random. I was doing perfectly fine and then lost my medical. So to Travis's a little bit of who you know, when that happened, my dad was, helping me through it and was saying, okay, if you could do anything right now, what would you do? Because there is hope that I will get my medical back in a few years. So fingers crossed. End goal, I want to be a captain for American one day. So my dad said, what would you like to do? And I said, I would love to be a recruiter because, I know the industry. I would love to help more females get into the industry. And, just because I didn't think it was possible, I want to let them know it's possible. And so I said I wanted to be a recruiter for the Cadet Academy, just like first thing that came to my mind. And it happened that they had a position open for that at the very time when this whole thing happened. And my dad was able to send my resume to one of his friends who knew somebody that was in the department. It was like a weird connection, but it ended up working out. So I feel very lucky to be here. And I am so happy to share this amazing program that American has to offer to people that are interested in aviation.
And thank you so much for agreeing to be here today. I have been hoping to have a recruiter come on the podcast now for a while. Kyle has known this and, he made it all happen. So hats off to Kyle as well. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry to hear about your medical. And I have my fingers crossed, and I'm sure our listeners will too, for you to get your medical back. Once that happens, I'm very confident that whatever you're going through, it's going to work out, because it's funny how in this industry we pool together, and everyone really wants to do everything they can to help a fellow aviator out and help them maintain their wings. So I'm sure with the background and the family that you have, that it'll work out. And please keep us updated, because we'd like to hear more about your journey, especially once you get back to the controls of an aircraft.
Of course.
Yes. Well, thank you for being here. And what I wanted to ask you, first and foremost, is this cadet program, the gold seal of the great opportunity to have an avenue to get onto a mainline carrier in the future for a student pilot or a pilot going through training. So what is the best way a pilot can go after and apply for a cadet program?
Okay, so how you would apply for the American Airlines Cadet Academy, the best way is to go through our website at www.aacadetacademy.com. And there you will start your application, and you just need to be prepared to answer some short questions like what qualities make you unique? How will the American Airlines Cadet Academy help you achieve your goal of becoming a pilot? And I would say definitely do your research on the Cadet Academy. We have a whole website with a ton of research, and just make sure that our program aligns with your goals. And then if so, highlight why does the Cadet Academy, how will that help you achieve your goals? So go ahead and start your application there. And when you do your application, one thing that's very important, so the number one thing we look for in these applications is passion for aviation. Okay, so we don't want this to just be an afterthought. We want this to be something that you are very passionate about. So if you can do anything to show your passion for aviation, whether that's if you've gone on a discovery flight, or maybe you volunteer at an aviation museum or something like that, just make sure you highlight your passion for aviation. And then also something that sets your application apart is if you include any reference letters or your transcripts and resume. Those are all very important pieces of information that will help make your application stand out for us.
Yeah, and absolutely great advice to have a way to really express your passion. Because everyone in aviation that has earned their wings, and I use the word earned very specifically, is that they get there because of a passion. Because if you want to be a pilot because of the thrill of the polyester uniform or the potential income you could one day retire making, it's the wrong reason, because the sacrifice that today's aviator has to be willing to give up in order to do this job is tremendous. And so passion is absolutely what is the foundation to a successful career. So what would you say is the biggest mistake someone applying to this program makes?
Trying to think of something valuable to say here. Definitely, as I mentioned before, if it just seems like an afterthought, that is not something we're going to be interested in. If you just are saying, oh yeah, I want to do this because my parents want me to do it, or also having your parents be too involved in the application process. So we do suggest that you have somebody read over your application to make sure your grammatical sentences and everything looks good. So grammar is very important. You want to make sure that this is professional, not just like you send a text message. So definitely have your parents look over it if you would like to, but don't have them too involved in the process. So we do not want your parents walking through our door asking about your application or calling us or emailing us, because then that seems like they are the ones forcing you to do it and it's not your choice.
Yeah, so if your mom and dad are, or mom or father, or mother or father, are working for American Airlines, don't walk into the academy and say, hey, my son's application was put in a few weeks ago. What's going on? I haven't heard anything yet. So that's a strike. So
yeah.
So none of that.
Said, we would love to hear from you if you have a question, right? You can reach out specifically. Whoever's application it is, please reach out to us, and we would love to give you an update on where we're at, or if we process your application or anything like that, we will definitely answer to you directly. But I would say do not have your parents try and fight your battles for you, because you definitely need to be dedicated and mature and hardworking in order to make it through this program. And so we want to make sure that you're showing us that from the very beginning.
So, and what does a cadet program offer? I mean, you look at it and you go, well, if I go through and just do my general aviation flight time or whatever I have intention to do, and then submit an application in off the street, what's the difference between me doing that and trying to apply for and receive the Cadet Academy program benefits?
Yes, so the Cadet Academy has many benefits, and I can say for myself, I actually did not go through the Cadet Academy because it was not up and running when I went through my flight training. I missed it by 1 year. So whenever I started working here, I was like, oh, I wish I could have done this. It is really an amazing pathway and an amazing opportunity that American has created to build up the pipeline for pilots, because as we know, we do have a lot of pilots that will be retiring in the next, couple years moving forward. So we will need, a supply of pilots even past this pandemic. And so this Cadet Academy is incredible. It is a program that is meant to build a clear pipeline from zero flight time all the way to becoming a pilot at American Airlines. So that is something that is really incredible about this program. It's a fast track program, which is also great. We see our cadets get their ratings in less than 18 months, but usually less than a year. So that is pretty fast track to go from zero all the way through your flight instructor ratings. And then from there, while you're going through the program, you will have an American Airlines pilot mentor. As we know, some people have a podcast here, and our mentors are amazing. And it's so nice to have a mentor while you're going through this if you don't have somebody in your family that is already a pilot. So you have somebody you can go to for advice and support whenever you need it throughout your training, because they've been through this before as well. So we have our pilot mentor. We do have financing options. for our cadets. And also, one amazing thing is our cadets benefit from a guaranteed interview at all 3 of American Airlines wholly owned regionals. So our cadets benefit from an interview, a guaranteed interview with PSA in Piedmont, and from there, which wholly owned you would like to go to. And you're actually not even obligated to go to one of the American Airlines wholly owns. But that is a pathway that is built out, because if you do go to one of the wholly owns, you will benefit from what we call the flow. So I'm sure many of you have heard about the flow to American, but that is one big benefit, that after you get the job at one of our 3 wholly owns, you are essentially guaranteed a job with American whenever the flow does occur and you're at the top. So.
Yeah, and that's really awesome. Industry leading, that the American Airlines has offered that flow through agreement. At our airline, Rob and I at Legacy Airlines, and Kyle as well, we have a similar agreement, very similar, in fact. And the Legacy Airlines Cadet Program is a lot like the American Airlines Cadet Program. That's a really nice coincidence there. What are the biggest challenges that you think cadets or people that are trying to become a cadet face today in our current climate?
So specifically today, dealing with the pandemic is one thing I believe is scaring some people away that are not, really closely tied to the industry already, because right now everybody is seeing, furloughs and things like that, which, hopefully with this bill passing, we're going to be able to call those pilots back, which is amazing. But I know that right now could be an intimidating time to start going through this program. But one thing that you want to consider is it does take the training timeline from going from 0 flight time to going to an airline is pretty long. So I would say a safe bet is 3 years, and usually a bit more than that if you get your ratings in 1 year and build up your 1,500 hours in 2 years. You're looking at about 3 years from when you start till when you go to the airline. So if you're considering being a pilot right now, or you're hesitant because you just started training for your flight ratings, I want to assure you that this is a good time, because although right now we don't have a huge demand for pilots, by the time you're through your training, I would bet money that we will be on the back end of this and needing pilots again. Before the pandemic, there was a pilot shortage. And the fact of the matter is we still have pilots retiring, turning 65 and retiring every day, and there will be more and more coming. So we will need pilots on the back end of this. So I think that's one of the biggest factors, is people tend to join and to start their career.
Yeah. Just to get an idea, do you know how many pilots are forecasted to retire in the next year or two? Does anybody have those figures?
Well, with the most of them with the permanent leave LOA took it out through beginning of next year. Projected next year was about around 800, so probably starting half of that, depending on the permanent leave LOA, and then after I believe at starting 22. We go up to around 900 to 1,000 a year mandatory retirements for the next 5 to 6 years. And then it tapers off a little bit, but it's still around 700 to 800 a year for another 10 years after that. Yeah. So.
And I know that the training department can only handle about that much too. So, I mean, that just gives you an idea of how critical this whole thing is as far as pilot supply and pilot shortages. So that Cadet Academy is crucial.
Yeah, AOPA.org put out an article towards the end of 2019, so it's about a year old, but the Smith research indicates that a tad over 2,000 professional airline pilots will retire in 2020, and the trend increases over the next 5 years after that until it peaks at over 3,100 pilots annually, reaching the mandatory retirement age of 65. The attrition numbers remain high through at least the year 2034. man, we got 14 more years or 13 and a half more years to go.
And I like to point out, Tony, that those numbers that AOPA put out, those were U.S. airline numbers. Those
Yes.
The fact of the international carriers, depending on where you want to live, and most of the Chinese airlines, a lot of the foreign airlines, strictly hire American pilots, American citizen pilots, and European pilots. So, and they have a very similar mandatory retirement as well with the ICAO. Everybody's 65 now. So it's a great time to be a pilot, great time to get into the business. And fortunately, the legacy sister cadet program gives that opportunity to those people that are interested in doing it.
Yeah. If you even have an idea that this is a career path you want to follow, if you're hesitating, I don't think anybody here would disagree with me that don't. The retirement age, you can look at Boeing puts out stats every quarter. It's a great source for the international numbers. Globally, the pilot retirements are going to be astronomical. So even though we got this speed bump in the road in our careers that is going to be 2020, it's a good time to get started because timing is everything. We've talked about this ad nauseum with this podcast before. I was very fortunate. I got hired. I was the first class after 9/11 to get hired at what we call Sandpiper Regional here at the show, the alias to the regional airline that I used to fly for. And we, for the first time, had more than 10 people in the classroom. We actually had to borrow chairs from other classrooms. We had 40 new hires in that class at the regional. It was great because it was at the beginning of the hiring boom. I timed it wonderfully, and I can take absolutely zero credit for that. It was just happenstance.
Pure luck.
I sat on reserve for a month, and then I was holding a line, and after about 6 months I was holding a commutable line. And then when it came time to upgrade, when I got hired, I think Rob and I talked about this a few episodes ago, it was something like a 12-year upgrade to captain at a regional airline. So very low pay.
Turboprop.
Yeah. And I upgraded relatively quickly in less than 6 years. I think it was 5.5 years, and I upgraded. Rob, I think you upgraded.
Same thing. Yeah, 5.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then didn't sit very long on reserve as a captain because another cyclical uptick was happening in the industry. And then here I am at a legacy airline, the tip of the pyramid in my career. I mean, I'm done. As long as I can keep my medical going and I don't do something stupid and I keep a good attitude and I continue to share my experiences and do everything to the best of my ability and not get fired. So you'll never hear me say, hold my beer, watch this in the flight deck. But there are those that try that, but as long as I keep, my nose clean and everything up and up, I'm going to have at least another 20 years left in my career. And, Kyle, you sat next to me in ground school, day one of INDOC at Legacy Airlines. And when we found out that there was a spot on the website to find out what seniority number you were going to be when you retired, and we're all happy with I'm number 600 or 300 or
how many times did we visit that website while we're sitting there in INDOC?
And Kyle,
3 or 4 times. And
Kyle, what did your thing say? What?
Well, I had to show you guys to make sure I was looking at the right thing, and it said number 3.
What?
Kyle will be number 3. He'll be a Boeing 797 captain or whatever.
I want to be.
Oh my God! He'll be flying the SpaceX capsule as captain.
I'll do the SpaceX domestic line only. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, does the moon count as domestic?
That's awesome. That's incredible.
To Jennifer's point, it really isn't a great time to get in. Don't let what's happening in the world discourage your path and your journey. Just if you have the passion, it sounds like, and you can put that on paper and be your own person, and show us that you're a responsible adult and this is what you want to do. It sounds like that's really the most important prerequisite of all. Is that right?
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
How many applications do you see in a day?
So right now, overall, right now we have 18,000 applications, and we have 1,000 interviews completed. So we have about 17,000 we can still look at right now. But with that being said, none of our applications get rejected. They just get rack and stack. Like we regroup and pull the top ones to the top and interview those. What? So yeah.
Okay, so how do you make it to the top then?
Okay, so as I talked about, what to include in your application. But another thing to really think about, this program is meant to take people right out of high school. So really the only two requirements are you need to be 18 years old and have graduated from high school. So you do not need a college degree to go through this program. And if we do have high schoolers apply, one thing we really want to see is leadership, shown in any way, shape, or form. If that's either teams or in the band or any organizations like student council, things like that. Also leadership in any way if you have been in college. So we do take people from all walks of life. There's no limit, or once you're 18, you can be any age from there.
Sure, yeah.
So we do have people that have gone to college like Will and then join as well. But yeah, anything you can do really to set yourself apart. So any leadership, also if you take if you're in high school, you take AP classes or anything like that. Just whatever you can do to make yourself more competitive.
How many flight schools do we have now, Jennifer? I get asked this question a lot. Are there multiple flight schools around the United States that we're currently using? Are we adding any more in particular areas?
So we currently have 3 flight schools total that we're partnered with, but we have a couple locations within those 3 partner schools. So right now we are partnered with Coast Flight and CAE and CTI. So those are our partners right now. Moving forward into 2021, we do not have all of our partnerships finalized yet. We do expect, that we will keep our core flight schools moving into 2021, but that does not mean that, we will not grow as well.
Excellent. And Travis, you've gone through the program. You're actually now building your flight time into enough to get on with a regional. Have you decided on a particular regional that you'd like to start applying to when the time comes?
No, I've not gotten much thought of that. Actually, I was just excited to find employment, to be honest with you. I hate to say it. I don't mean to be the negative Nancy here, but I was just happy to find employment. So I'm kind of taking it one step at a time. I did go into this, like I mentioned, I sold my house, I quit my job and moved across the country. That was me personally. And I came into the mindset that I'm going to go where the wind takes me. And I'm speaking like literally. So if I can find a job in whatever city, that's what I'm going to do. Because I've basically poured my heart and soul into this. And, I honestly didn't choose to come back to Kearney, Nebraska. I was applying for everything in the South that I possibly could find. And I wasn't hearing a whole lot back right now. Luckily the networking that the cadet program offers, that's pretty much the only reason why I am employed up here in Kearney. So I was able to find something, kind of dug a little bit deeper and leaned on the ladies over there. Maria helped me out a lot and got me hooked up with the kind I'm working for now. And but what's regional, I have not thought it at all. So
yeah. So I got a question that you kind of brought up something there that I'm curious about. And so this question is actually for Jennifer. Travis mentioned using some of the connections. So does the program offer that kind of stuff to the cadets, kind of like a CFI job placement kind of thing?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. So, as you can imagine, having connections with American Airlines and having American Airlines, in your title of what you're going through is a really big benefit. We do have a whole entire team devoted at American Airlines to the Cadet Academy. So, with that being said, we have one specific person that is devoted to cadet development, and he mentioned Maria. So she does watch our cadets throughout the whole entire program and helps them with any questions they might have throughout the program. She is always available to them, text, call, night, day, anything. Once they do have their flight ratings and they're ready to move on to instructing positions, she keeps in touch with them at all times to make sure they have a job. And if they don't, she is searching every single day for a job for them. And she will even go so far as to write recommendation letters for our cadets as well, because while they're going through the program, she gets to know them well enough that she can, write a whole letter speaking to their character at that point. Yeah. So that's also one huge benefit.
Tony, where was this when we were looking for a job? You know what I mean? This is amazing. I mean, we literally had to do this on our own. I mean, I helped Tony. Tony helped other people, Roger, and I got help from other people, but it was all like word of mouth for me. I mean, going on, websites and getting gouges on airlines interviews and all that stuff, the questions that they're going to ask you. And oh man, this is so revolutionary. It's awesome.
And now I know why you have thousands upon thousands of applications on your desk. It's because this program is a gift for us, really.
And so with awesome. That, going off of that really quickly about the jobs. So I did say we have 3 partner schools, and within those schools we have multiple locations. So we have about 6 locations total, because each school has a couple locations. And we do see that our cadets, when they go through their flight training, the schools really do, like them and appreciate them, and they're generally very happy with them. So it is very common that after our cadets get through their training, the schools do try and do whatever they can to give them a CFI position where they are. So obviously that's not always feasible depending on timing. Like right now, I know that some cadets are not being placed where they are because there's issues with the pandemic, but in general, they do like to keep our cadets in order to teach more students. And we have seen at some of our schools, we call cadets teaching cadets. So we have people that have gone through the program and graduated. They're now the flight instructors, and they're teaching other American Airlines cadets, which we love to see that too.
Oh, that's great. And William, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you being in the program that you wish you had a better grasp on?
I think that the pandemic was probably the biggest thing, because now, if someone catches COVID at your school, everyone needs to get tested. So you have a lot of stop and go. And when you get in a rhythm of flying, then it can progress a lot faster. And when you have all those stop and goes, they can definitely affect the way your training goes. But at the end of the day, if you really, take hold of your own pilot training, then it can still go very quickly. And it went fairly quickly for myself. But I think that I was blessed to have like a ton of people there to help me. So I didn't really have any issues going through, but you can get kind of lost in the process depending on your personality. I would definitely recommend everyone who's going through it to, be in charge of their own flight training, because when you're time building, there's not a flight instructor like behind you saying, hey, like, let's go do our, instrument approaches or whatever that we need to get done today. It's like up to you to build those hours, and you need to get the 60 hours, and, you can do it in 3 months, or you can do it in 6 weeks. So it's up to how you get it done and your motivation.
And do you have an idea of which regional you'd like to pursue?
There are 2, because I would like to go to Charlotte, which isn't too far away from Charleston. So either PSA or Piedmont would be the 2 I'm looking at.
Okay, excellent. Okay. And gentlemen, this question is for the both of you. What is your hazardous attitude? Travis, let's put you on the spot first. What do you think?
Oh man, that's a good question, I guess. I don't know.
He's a crew dog. I bet you it's, hey, I bet you can't do this.
No, I'm not a hold my beer type of guy.
Okay.
I'm pretty safe to the rules. I'm kind of timid with some of that stuff, at least. I think like me personally, I might find myself being guilty of getting wrapped up in the gotta get time. I'm here to build time, and I gotta rush through it. I don't know if that's really a one specific one, but I'm here, and I experienced it the first month I was here, and I almost got burned out already because I was just flying, 3-4 lessons a day, because I'd been sitting without a job since March and since the shutdown, and I wanted to get rolling on this. And I will recommend that, we're here to build time, but remember that the reason why I came here is to enjoy it. And so I actually already realized that I need to take a step back and just, kind of take it as it comes, take my breaks and take my vacations and just kind of relax at it too. So
maybe a little of impulsivity to get that flight time.
I would say that's probably the one that fits the best.
Yeah.
We've all had that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're all guilty of that.
Kind of still do. Kind of still do. Yeah.
And Will, what about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It'd have to be impulsivity. Like, none of them are desirable traits, but if you had to pick from one of them, it would probably be impulsivity.
Yeah. Jennifer, as a pilot, what is your hazardous attitude?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I would say, I don't know if this is not a hazardous attitude, but for me, when I was flight instructing and building time, I err on the side of being too cautious, which it's obviously good to be cautious to be safe, but I think I take it to a next level. So sometimes, I would see there's a storm coming, but, is it going to come over towards us or not? It's kind of far away. I'm not sure if I should go, and then I wouldn't go because rather be safe than sorry. So I've been, told my whole entire life about scary aviation stories and whatnot with my brother and dad. And my brother had, a story where he got stuck somewhere because of weather and all that. So I've, had it beaten into my head that you got to be really cautious. So I would say I could be overly cautious at sometimes.
So really the opposite of invulnerability. Yeah. And that could potentially be a little hazardous if you're spending a lot of time thinking about not taking action or afraid to take action. So yeah, for sure.
And for building that flight time, it comes really slow when you're afraid. So
yeah. Well, better safe than sorry, is because, as the old saying says, better to be on the ground wishing you were in the air than the other way around.
And see, I've heard that my whole life, so it's drilled into me.
Yeah. And Kyle, you're not off the hook. What's your hazardous attitude?
Man, I don't really have one anymore. I've kind of slowed down, take what I can get, how I can get it. And, I guess once you reach a certain point, you're just like, yeah, you know what? Well, we can just go back to the hotel, or, you know what? We get paid by the minute now.
Maybe that's a little bit of resignation. Well, what's the use? They're going to make us go fly anyway.
Yeah, a little bit of that maybe.
Yeah. And what about Rob?
Sorry, I had some audio difficulties. I didn't get the question.
What's your hazardous attitude, sir?
Oh, yeah, we're still on that one.
He's trying to avoid it.
Trying to avoid it. I'll be right back. Yeah, right back. Let's see. I would agree definitely with everybody else on the flight time thing. Get the job done. I'm always about, hey, we can evaluate the level of risk versus reward, and let's just power through it and get it done. I think that's my biggest fault. Is always trying to just make it happen no matter what the scenario is. And I realize in aviation, you really have to view it like Jennifer is step back and you gotta be safe. If there's a slight chance of something going wrong, you need to know that, that's probably one of the, you have to take that into consideration and all the other things and choose the safest course of action. And, it's hard for me to make those kind of decisions because I always, like I said, I just want to do it and get it done and, take the chance. But I've learned to definitely scale back that and be on the ground and talk about it later rather than being up there going, oh crap, I chose wrong.
I'm in the same boat. I think that would fall under macho maybe. Like I can do it, and that I think from a perspective from, let's say, the FOQA program, where the flight quality assurance people that have called me in the past, like, well, we see that I got called one time, you were 2 knots fast from our window on short final. Unstabilized approach criteria dictates that you perform a go around. Can you please tell me why you landed? And you were the one flying, so that's why I'm calling you, not the captain. And you're
sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, that's like, well, I knew I could do it. Yeah. Macho.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I'm another thing you just made me remember. I'm really a stickler for following the book to the T, percentages, numbers, just, if it's in the book and I know about it, I'm going to be like, oh, nope, can't do it. Or we got to watch this, or we got to make sure we're here. And, that's obviously for good, the book's there for a reason and for good. And a lot of the stuff that's in there was written in blood so stuff we should follow. But, there's also, very, hey, you can't eat the same meal. Come on, that's all they gave us, so we're going to eat it anyway.
Yeah, I think they're removing that, or they removed that from, because I was looking for that reg and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that's not there anymore, I don't think.
Good.
Yeah, perfect.
Some research on that actually as like a fun fact trivia thing.
Cool. Well, there you go.
And I've had a captain. We were on a sit in, where was it? It was Cincinnati. We were on a sit. So we go outside of security. We go to the restaurant. We sit down, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is nice. Let's grab a meal. You know what you want?" Yeah, okay. So I ordered whatever I ordered. I don't know, like a chef salad or whatever it was, or Chinese chicken salad maybe. And he goes, "Oh well, I was going to get that. Now I got to pick something else." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. What? Why?" He's like, "Well, because there's a reg FAR 121.11 or whatever." He spit it all out. He's like, "We can't have the same meal prepared by the same." But I'm like, I remember reading that when I was going through private audit. Is that a thing? And I think maybe it was still a thing, but now it's not a thing, because if so, the company would be violating that with our, 2 of everything in the cockpit for a crew meal.
Cheese and grapes.
Everybody gets the same cheese tray and.
Was it the turkey arugula?
I don't
sandwich?
eat those anymore.
Oh,
I don't want to say anything bad, but I don't eat
these
those.
guys are looking at us like, really?
You get meals? Sweet.